Hello, my sweethearts. Today I want to tell you a story that starts like any other ordinary day, but ends with a secret as dark as it is surprising. Have you ever imagined saving someone in the middle of the street, without knowing that this simple act of kindness could completely change the course of your life? Well, that's exactly what happened to a brave young man who, on a scorching sunny day, just wanted to sell his little keychains. And ended up crossing paths with a mysterious woman named Isabella Rossi. This story gave Grandma here the chills, right down to her white hair, shall we?
The sun beat down on me that day more intensely than usual even for August. I ran trying to hawk my trinkets, keychains mainly, to anyone who seemed to have a spare dollar. My usual spot was near the park, but the cops had evicted me for unlicensed solicitation, whatever that meant. So I ended up near the city's upscale district, where buildings scraped the sky and cars cost more than my entire savings, which, let's be honest, isn't saying much. Most people here simply disregarded me, their gazes fixed ahead, as if I were non-existent. I was accustomed to it. Invisibility, in a way, was my superpower. Kept me out of trouble for the most part. But then I saw her. She hurried forward as if late for something momentous, her face pale even under the shade of her large sunglasses. She wore a dress that likely cost more than my family's annual rent, and then she simply collapsed, like a rag doll with its strings severed. Everyone froze, their gazes fixed on the scene. Several individuals reached for their phones, likely to document the unfolding event for social media. Motion ceased. It was as if they were waiting for someone else to intervene. But I couldn't remain static. I'd witnessed enough of life's darker aspects to recognize when someone required assistance, and she desperately needed it. I sprinted towards her, pushing through the throng. She was barely breathing, her skin slick with perspiration. I knew I had to get her to the hospital, and quickly. I called out for someone to summon an ambulance, but no one seemed to heed my pleas. They were all too engrossed in their clandestine observations. So I did the only thing I could think of. I scooped her up into my arms. She was surprisingly light, like a bird. I began to run, weaving through cars and pedestrians, my lungs burning, my legs screaming. The nearest hospital was a few blocks away. Yet each step felt like a mile. I kept repeating, just a little further, just a little further. I didn't know who she was, but I knew I couldn't let her die. Finally, I reached the emergency room. Nurses swiftly intervened, removing her from my arms and carrying her inside. I stood there, gasping, my shirt soaked in sweat, feeling as though I had just completed a marathon. They asked me to wait, assuring me they would update me on her condition. The hours crawled by. Seated in the waiting room, surrounded by apprehensive faces and the incessant hum of machinery, I replayed the scene in my mind, agonizing over whether I had acted appropriately, if there was anything more I could have done. Finally, a physician emerged. He appeared fatigued, yet a smile touched his lips. "She will be all right," he stated. "You brought her here in the nick of time. It was a form of poisoning. A few more minutes and—" He shook his head. "You saved her life." A crushing wave of relief washed over me, so intense it almost made me lose my balance. I had done it. I had truly accomplished something good, something significant. The physician inquired about my name, meticulously recording my details. He stated that the woman's family wished to express their gratitude. The following day, I returned to the hospital. I yearned to see her, to ascertain her genuine well-being. I was escorted to her room. She was seated in the bed, exhibiting a considerably improved appearance, her eyes luminous. She beamed upon seeing me. He thanked her, his voice weak yet distinct. "You saved my life." I mumbled something about being insignificant, but she wouldn't dismiss me. She pressed me for details about my life, my circumstances. I recounted my family history, my struggles, my aspirations. She listened intently, her eyes brimming with empathy. Then she told me her name, Isabella Rossi, and it was in that instant that I saw it. The small, almost imperceptible tattoo on her wrist. A symbol I recognized instantly. A symbol that turned my world upside down. A symbol that signified that I was not merely another ordinary boy. Happenstance in the right place at the right time. It meant I was connected to her in a way I could never have foreseen. A connection far more perilous than I could have ever known. Isabella Rossi. The name echoed in my mind, but it was the tattoo that sent a shiver down my spine. A serpent coiled around a dagger, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. It was the mark of the serpent's hand, a clandestine organization shrouded in whispered rumors and shadowy dealings. They were purported to be involved in everything from illicit trade to political manipulation, their influence stretching across continents like a suffocating mist. I knew the serpent's hand from the whispered tales my grandfather recounted. He, a port worker, was intimately familiar with the subterranean currents of the city's criminal element. He cautioned me to maintain a distance from anything associated with them, a force against which one could not contend, only endure. He spoke of their ruthlessness, their ability to obliterate anyone who crossed their path, leaving no trace. Now, consider how this altered everything. I was no longer simply a child helping someone in need. I was now entangled in something far greater and more perilous than anything I could have ever envisioned. I had saved the life of a woman marked by a group notorious for their cunning, and in doing so, had placed myself squarely within their orbit. Isabella's compassionate gaze, her genuine gratitude, all now sounded different, tainted by the knowledge of her connection to the serpent's hand. Was she a victim or a pawn in their game? The questions gnawed at me, each more unsettling than the last. I couldn't shake the premonition that my act of kindness had inadvertently unleashed Pandora's box. My grandfather's words echoed in my mind. Stay away. But how could I stay away now? I had saved his life. Didn't that engender some sort of obligation? Or was I merely a pawn in a game I didn't understand, a tool to be utilized and discarded once superfluous? The atmosphere felt constricted, the air thick. Isabella watched me expectantly, awaiting my utterance, anything at all. My mind, however, raced, attempting to piece together the fragmented information I possessed, endeavoring to decipher a situation that seemed to defy all rational explanation. Consumed by a burgeoning paranoia, a wave of suspicion washed over me. Were we being monitored? Had they witnessed my bringing her to the hospital? Did they know I had recognized the telltale mark? Every shadow seemed to lengthen, each sound to amplify, leaving me feeling exposed, vulnerable, a deer caught in the headlights. Conversely, to ignore the peril was equally reprehensible. To feign obliviousness to the design, to pretend ignorance of its import, would have been a betrayal of my own instincts, a denial of the warnings ingrained within me since childhood. It would have been akin to deliberately walking into a trap, hoping for the best. The weight of the decision pressed heavily upon me. I was merely a child, barely eking out a living, striving to establish a life. I did not solicit this. I did not desire this. Yet there I stood at a crossroads, confronted by a choice that could potentially dictate not only my own destiny, but possibly Isabella's as well. A heavy, oppressive silence descended, punctuated only by the rhythmic beeps of the machines monitoring Isabella's vital signs. It was a countdown, I realized, a countdown to something unseen but undeniably imminent. A decision was imperative, and I needed to make it swiftly. The immediate question was, how much did Isabella know? Was she a pawn, oblivious to the serpent's hand's true intentions, or a willing participant, complicit in their machinations? Assessing her level of awareness became paramount. Should I feign ignorance, adopting the role of a guileless savior, subtly eliciting information without revealing my own knowledge? Or should I confront her directly, risking a potentially perilous confrontation? Decades ago, my grandfather faced a similar predicament. A seemingly innocuous gift from a grateful merchant proved to be a cunningly disguised surveillance device, planted by a rival faction vying for control of the port. He only discovered it fortuitously, noticing a minuscule discrepancy in the object's weight. This imparted a crucial lesson: trust is a luxury one cannot afford in the shadows. Now it seemed I needed to apply this lesson to my own predicament. I resolved to proceed with circumspection. "Isabella," I began, my voice restrained, "this symbol. I've encountered it before." I scrutinized her, searching for any hint of dissimulation in her eyes. "It's a local gang, isn't it? They operate in the vicinity of the wharves." This was a calculated gamble. By presenting a muted version of the truth, I hoped to gauge her reaction, to ascertain whether she would corroborate my suspicions or attempt to mislead me. Her response would be pivotal in determining my next course of action. A flicker of apprehension crossed his features, a fleeting expression of unease. "It's complicated," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "They are protective. They ensure the safety of my family." Protectors? If ever I heard a euphemism, that was it. The serpent's hand offered no protection, they demanded tribute. They thrived on fear and intimidation, not genuine benevolence. Their words presented a meticulously constructed facade, designed to obscure a more sinister reality. Nevertheless, I pressed on. "Security? Whose security? What does your family do?" Hesitantly, her eyes scanned the room, as if searching for an escape route. "My family, we have dealings. Numerous ventures. Certain individuals, they harbor envy of our prosperity." Her evasiveness only deepened my suspicions. The more she attempted to downplay the serpent's hand's involvement, the more certain I became that she was inextricably ensnared within their web. But why? What insidious hold did they have over her? Over her family? An alternative perspective might posit that Isabella was genuinely terrified, ensnared by circumstances beyond her agency. Perhaps she was born into this world without recourse from the serpent's hand's pervasive influence. In this scenario, my intervention could be her sole avenue to liberation. However, embracing that optimistic outlook felt reckless. My grandfather's warnings still reverberated, urging caution and self-preservation. Blindly trusting Isabella would be to disregard the inherent peril, potentially sacrificing myself for someone who might be manipulating me. Consider, for instance, the narrative of Maria, a young woman who forged a rapport with a charismatic stranger, only to discover he was exploiting her to facilitate the illicit smuggling of goods past the city's checkpoints. Her naivete proved costly, consigning her to incarceration while the stranger vanished without a trace. I could not afford to repeat the same mistake. I needed to safeguard myself, even if it meant challenging Isabella's motives, even if it meant confronting the possibility that she was not the seemingly innocent victim. The stakes were too high to blindly trust. "I want to help you," I stated, my voice firm, "but I need you to be honest with me. What is truly going on?" My gaze bore down on her, demanding a truthful response. A pregnant silence descended, thick with unspoken words and hidden agendas. The ensuing moments would be definitive. Would she unveil the truth behind her connection to the serpent's hand? Or would she continue her game, pulling me further into her treacherous world? Only time would tell. Isabella's silence hung heavy, a palpable tension filling the cold hospital room. Her gaze drifted, revealing a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Finally, she inhaled deeply, as if bracing herself for a plunge into icy waters. "It's all right," she conceded, her voice barely a whisper. "There's more, much more." She began to unravel a tapestry of inherited obligations and obscure family alliances. Her family's fortune, it transpired, was not built solely on legitimate enterprises. Generations past, their ancestors had forged a pact with the serpent's hand, a symbiotic relationship where wealth flowed in exchange for certain services. These services, she surmised, were far from palatable, encompassing the discreet transportation of illicit goods, strategic investments in morally dubious ventures, and, at times, the silencing of inconvenient voices. As Isabella spoke, a new layer of complexity emerged, the internal conflict within the Rossi family itself. She painted a picture of warring factions, each vying for control of the family's assets and influence. Some, like her, yearned to sever ties with the Serpent's Hand, repulsed by the organization's ruthless tactics and moral bankruptcy. Others clung to the alliance, deeming it essential for the continuation of their prosperity and power. Consider the ramifications of Isabella's poisoning. Is this an external assault, orchestrated by a rival seeking to destabilize the Rossi family? Or was it an internal power play, a calculated maneuver to eliminate Isabella and pave the way for a more compliant successor? The possibilities churned, each more unsettling than the last. Following this revelation, Isabella confessed to having surreptitiously worked to dismantle the Rossi family's connection to the Serpent's Hand. She had diverted funds, leaked information to law enforcement, and subtly undermined their internal operations. This act of defiance, however, had made her a target. Consequently, her poisoning was not merely an assassination attempt, it was a declaration of war. The Serpent's Hand, or perhaps a faction within her own family, delivered a stark message: dissent would not be tolerated. The attempt on her life served as a forceful reminder of the power they wielded and the drastic measures they would employ to maintain their dominion over the Rossi family. Envision yourself now in Isabella's shoes. Betrayed by those closest to her, hunted by a relentless organization, and burdened by the shadowy secrets of her family. The isolation must have been crushing, the fear constant. She radically distanced herself from the life of privilege and luxury most would associate with a millionaire heiress. Another crucial layer is the question of trust. Could I truly believe Isabella's story? Was she entirely sincere, or was she still withholding vital information? Her motives remained shrouded in ambiguity. Was she genuinely seeking redemption, or was she simply manipulating me, leveraging my act of kindness to further her own agenda? Conversely, were I to entirely disregard her, I risked condemning her to a fate she did not deserve. If her narrative were truthful, she was a prisoner in her own existence, desperately seeking a means of egress. My refusal to assist her could potentially seal her doom, leaving her at the mercy of the Serpent's Hand. Now consider how this applies when faced with difficult choices in your own life. Weighing the risks and rewards, discerning truth from falsehood, and navigating the treacherous currents of human relationships. It is a skill honed through experience, yet demands constant vigilance and a disposition to interrogate everything. Having completed her accounting, Isabella's gaze met mine, beseeching understanding and assistance. The weight of her stare was oppressive, demanding a response. I faced a pivotal choice, a decision that would not only impact our lives but potentially alter the trajectory of the Rossi family and the Serpent's Hand itself. The repercussions ascended to an unprecedented level, and time pressed relentlessly against us. Contemplating this unfolding narrative, we discern a pattern far more intricate than a simple rescue story. The initial act of compassion emanated outwards, creating unforeseen eddies within a current of power, deception, and inherited destiny. It is as if a single stone, cast into a placid lake, had disturbed not only the surface, but also the long-settled sediments at its depths, stirring slumbering forces long dormant. The confluence of two disparate worlds, the brutal realities of urban survival and the gilded cage of immense wealth, unveils a shared vulnerability across the globe. Both exist under the shadow of a force that operates beyond the reach of conventional morality, illustrating how power, regardless of its facade, can be simultaneously a weapon and a prison. The journey thus far compels us to contemplate the true cost of such influence, measured not in currency, but in compromised values and abnegated liberties. As we intertwine these threads of history, a deeper question emerges. What is the nature of true agency when one's path appears predetermined by circumstances or ancestry? Is it possible to sever the intricate web of obligations and expectations, or are we all, to some extent, bound to the choices of those who came before us? The answer, seemingly, does not lie in denying the past, but in confronting it with courage and a lucid understanding of its enduring influence. Consider the cumulative weight of secrets transmitted across generations, shaping not only individual destinies, but also the very fabric of families and organizations. These hidden burdens, like unseen ballast, can stabilize or sink a vessel, depending on how they are managed and understood. The challenge, therefore, is to navigate the treacherous waters of inherited legacy, discerning which aspects to embrace and which to discard, in order to chart a course toward a more authentic future. The path forward transcends immediate action, demanding a fundamental shift in perspective. It necessitates a willingness to interrogate established norms, challenge entrenched power structures, and embrace the inherent uncertainty of forging one's own destiny. The act of saving a life seemingly served merely as the catalyst, the spark igniting a far more intricate and transformative process. Recognizing the true stakes transcends the immediate conflict. They encompass the enduring human struggle for autonomy, justice, and the opportunity to forge a world where compassion prevails over corruption. The choices made in the moments to come will not only shape the destiny of those directly implicated, but will also serve as a testament to the enduring power of individual action in the face of overwhelming adversity. Isabella's gaze, a silent plea, settled upon him, hovering in the air. In that instant, the sterile hospital environment transmuted into a crucible, forging a bond between two souls from drastically disparate realms. This connection was not born of shared privilege or lineage, but of a singular, desperate act of compassion. The path ahead remained obscure, yet one thing reverberated with unshakable conviction. Refusal was no longer an option. It wasn't merely about saving a life. It was about confronting a system that thrived on exploitation and deceit. It was about challenging the notion that one's fate was predetermined by birth or circumstance. It was about demonstrating that even the smallest act of defiance could reverberate, unsettling the meticulously constructed facade of power. The decision wasn't a logical one, but a matter of conscience. To abandon would have been to betray the very values that had initially propelled me to action. The serpent's hand, with its insidious influence and generations of accumulated darkness, represented more than just a criminal organization. It embodied the pernicious nature of unchecked power, the corrosive effect of avarice, and humanity's enduring capacity for cruelty. Confronting them was to confront a part of ourselves, the shadow lurking within each of us, tempting us with the illusion of control and the promise of immunity from consequences. Conversely, Isabella, despite her privileged upbringing, embodied the potential for redemption. She stood as a testament to the enduring power of conscience, the capacity to acknowledge and repudiate the darkness that surrounded her. Her courage in defying her familial legacy, in risking everything for justice, served as an inspiration. She was not merely a victim. She was a warrior, fighting for a future where compassion and integrity could prevail over corruption and avarice. Now, consider the implications of our alliance. We were two individuals, armed with little more than our convictions, confronting a force that had shaped the very fabric of our society. The odds were stacked against us, the risks were immense, but the potential reward, a world where justice reigned supreme, was worth the struggle. If you enjoyed our story, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment that Nana Rose will respond to.